let's assume that we've gone through, spent a couple hours restoring this, taking out all the blemishes, and now we're ready to go. Okay, so now we got to figure out the size and play the resolution game. So first thing I would do is I would save it. Okay, keep this as this restoration file here as a Photoshop file. And I forgot to go over color corrections, so we'll do some really quick color corrections. To do some color corrections, what we've got down here is some layers or adjustment layers. So if you don't have layers up, you can go to Window and Show Layers. If it's checked, it'll just disappear. Okay, and we've got layers here. The other thing that we work with is channels. So say we wanted to make this a black and white image. There's a couple ways we can make it black and white. Typically, let's go to channels. Typically, I like to scan everything in color, even if it's a black and white image, because sometimes the different channels will have better color information. So you can see I've got the channels up. Blue doesn't look so good, but green looks pretty good if I were going to change that to a black and white image. So an easy way to do that is come into your channels, go to the one you like. You know, I didn't really like red. Green looks pretty good. It's got a lot of detail in the flowers. That's a pretty good value. So once I'm there, I'm going to go up to the Select drop-down menu and select All. Okay, that gives me the marching ants all the way around it. If I zoom out, you can see that the whole image is selected, okay, or the whole channel in this case. Then I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, and then I want to go to the RGB channel and go to Edit and Paste. Okay, and that's a quick way to make it a grayscale image or to grayscale everything out. Okay, now for this particular one, you can see that it's made a new layer as well. I don't want it to be grayscale, so we're gonna just delete that layer, but well, not copy it. We want to delete it. Okay, so that's an easy way to convert it to a grayscale or to get a good value grayscale. And one of the reasons why, even if it's a black and white image, I'll scan it in color, because sometimes the channels will come in better than what the scanner gives you by scanning in straight black and white. Okay, so another way, if we're not going black and white, and I should mention that sometimes if the color is really bad, it's better or easier or more convenient to make it a black and white photo. So that may be something you want to consider. If the color is really, really bad, it could be difficult to color correct it. But to do some basic color corrections, typically I like to do an adjustment layer. So with the layers palette showing, once again, that would be under the Window, Layers palette. Okay. We're going to come down to this little icon down in the bottom right corner. This is called the adjustment layer icon, and if I click on here, I get a bunch of different options for different types of adjustment layers. In this case, I want to do a curves adjustment layer. As soon as I do that, it's going to make a new layer. This is what an adjustment layer is going to look like, and it's going to have this little histogram in the properties above it. So here, typically, this is your brightness and contrast, these two sliders. And depending on if you're CMYK or RGB, one will be light and one will be dark. In this case, these are our shadows, and then this top slider is our highlights. So I can adjust those. You can see you can blow it out really quick. I like to bring over my bottom slider, make my blacks a little bit richer, and drag it over to that curve there. Okay. Then I can start doing the midtones. If I need to make it a little bit brighter, if I need to make it a little bit darker, I can adjust those. Okay, and you also got that top slider. Don't usually adjust it that much. Okay, now you also have red. You can change the amount of red that's in there, the amount of green that's in there, okay, stuff like that, so on and so forth. But that's how the adjustment layer works. And what's nice about this is if you save it as a Photoshop file, and if I really mess it up, I can just click and drag it off and it will reset it. One thing that's really nice is that if I turn the eyeball icon on and off, I can see what it looks like before and after. So that's without the color adjustment. There it is with the color adjustment. And I already did some color corrections with this photo, but that's the basics. So we can save that there. And that's just kind of a quick color option. I should mention that if you're doing color, it's always a good idea to find out what color your monitor is. And one quick way I always tell people is to get a can of Coca-Cola, hold it up to your monitor, you know, make sure it's a red can. The Diet Coke doesn't work as much. And then bring up the Coca-Cola website. Okay. Depending on, you know, somehow I got to the Coke store. Let's see if we can find the actual Coca-Cola website. Okay, Coca-Cola website. It's got a little bit more red on it, especially down on the bottom. If you hold your can up and what you see here is not red, maybe it's blue or green or pink, then you know your color monitor is really far off. If it's close to red, you're in luck. So that's a good quick way to tell. Not to shout out for the Macs as much, but if you can get your hands on an old iMac, usually an old iMac screen is going to be a lot better and higher quality than some of your cheap Windows, Samsung, LG, Dell monitors. To get a really good color monitor, you're going to have to spend $800 to $1,000. Any cheap monitors probably aren't going to have the right color. They'll probably be a little bit blown out and saturated. So we'll leave color calibration for another video, but like I said, quick way to judge it: get a Coke can, go to coca-cola.com, see if that Coke red is even close. You know, if you've got a red or a shade of red, you're doing well. If you're pink or blue or some other color, then that's not a monitor I would use for color correction. And the other thing, just keep in mind that color correction is a game. A lot of times I'll do one print, try and figure out where my color is on this monitor, knowing that I've got to come back and adjust this file. And that's the nice thing about having these adjustment layers, is that I can always come back and make adjustments to these layers. If I need to add more red, if I need to lighten or darken, I have the original file to work with. Okay. So having said that, we're going to move into saving this restore file, and we're going to look at how we save and make a print ready file. So first thing we want to do is we want to flatten our image. So we're going to take out that adjustment layer. Walmart and Costco and these photo places don't like layered files. They usually like JPEGs or TIFFs are preferred. So we're going to assume that this photo is restored. We're going to flatten the file. I want to go to Save As, and usually I'll put in the name something print. Okay, so I'll rename it print, change it to a JPEG file. If we got some warnings here, that means that it's going to throw some of the Photoshop stuff away. Okay. Now with a JPEG, I'll get an option for compression. I like to go all the way in the highest one. You know, if you need to get it in an email, you may need to reduce those, but for this case, we're going to leave it fairly high. Okay. Now the other thing I didn't check was the resolution. So I'm going to go back, go into image and image size, and we're going to look at this resolution. So if we look at this resolution, right now my image is 1 inch by an inch, 1.036. Okay, but the resolution is 5600 dpi. So in this one, we're going to uncheck resample. Resample means that it's making up information up. This will allow you to break the laws of physics. Okay? In theory, if you reduce the resolution, your physical size will go up. So remember I mentioned before that 300 pixels per inch or DPI, the resolution, that's the ideal print resolution. So we're going to uncheck resample, type in 300 here, and you see that my physical size jumped from 18 and a half by a little over 19 inches. Okay? So at that point, I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to go back into this and change this image size once more. Now, let's just say I want an 8 by 10. So if I want the width or the height, we want to put in 8 and see what happens. So see how it's 8 by 8 here, okay? And you see our resolutions jumping up. We're going to now check Resample Image. Okay? We want to make sure this is at 300. Okay, and we're basically throwing away information, all the extra information we don't need. Now, in this case, I want 10 because I want it to be 8 by 10. I'm going to have to come back and crop a little bit off the sides to make this an 8 by 10. So I'll make the height, because that's the one I hit first. It could have been 8 if this height were 12. Put in the lower one, and then we'll trim it off later. So we're going to click OK. Okay, now let's see if we're in inches. We are in inches. Now I need to come in and cut some off. Okay, so what I can do there is I can go to Image and Canvas Size, and now with Canvas Size I can just type in 8 here, and it's going to say, hey, you're going to cut some of this off. Are you sure you want to do that? I click Proceed and it cuts it off. Okay. Now that worked really good for me because I wanted to cut some off each side. If I don't like that, I can undo it, come back, and I could do it a different way. I could come in with my crop tool and put in a specific size. So if I want to do 8 wide, so I can do 8 IN here, go to the next box, and do 10 IN for 10 inches. Okay, and now I can move it around and pick where I want to crop it. Okay, and I can crop it there. Okay, now notice I got a little wide on the top. So that's another way we could do it. We could even go back, and instead of doing the image size, maybe we want to do image size not 10 but a little bit bigger. And we want to cut off the top a little bit more. Okay, so now I can come in with the 8 by 10. Usually I don't change the resolution there. I let that pick somewhere else. Okay, now you have to be careful because this can crop it to a point where you don't have a 300 dpi image. So that's one of the defaults, one of the problems that you could run into here. Okay. In that case, I would crop it first and then change your resolution. So crop it. Once again, I didn't quite get it. I got some white on the edges, so we'll try that again. Bring it down, cut off a little bit of mom and dad's arm. And yeah, I like that right there. Okay, and then once again, file and save as, or save. Make sure that you're saving it as that print file. Okay. Be aware that if you're saving it and you still have layers, you haven't changed those things, it may still be working off of your Photoshop file. So a lot of times it'll save it as a copy. So just be aware of what you're saving it as, what you're replacing. And like I said, I usually have 3 files that I'm working with for photo restoration. And that's about it, guys. Hope you guys like this and it helps you out in your Photoshop work. Thanks.